everyone, welcome back to This Book Belongs to Pam. Today we are going to be reading 7 different flavors of romance books. It's February, it's the season of love, and for the past 2 years I've actually been doing some kind of like February romance theme vlog. I think I did reading romance by the beach and also reading romance books for a week vlogs. I'll link those down below. But this year I want to switch it up a bit. I don't just want to read random romance books. I want to spice things up and make it a bit more varied. I thought that I would read romance books but pick a different subgenre of romance for every single book that I read. The different subgenres of romance that I'm going to be reading is contemporary romance, dark romance, sports romance, fantasy romance, historical romance, regency romance, and paranormal romance. So that is a lot of romance, but it's kind of interesting to see what the difference are with each subgenre. The first subgenre that I'm going to be reading is contemporary romance, and I am going to be reading Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. I am being very strategic with this pick because this is also part of my 12 Friends, 12 Recs 12 Friends challenge. It would be nice to just tick off one of those as well. I have zero idea what this book is about. I think it involves like celebrities, something like that, because that's what I've heard. In Stargraph it says here, Funny Should Ask by Elissa Sussman is a good fit for those seeking a lighthearted and emotional romance that explores the complexities of celebrity culture and second chances at love. Quite excited for it. It's contemporary romance. It should be somewhat of a quick read. I'll update you once I actually start reading the book. So that's our first book for this reading different subgenres of romance challenge. I'm like all over the place right now. I don't think I've really done any update on the book that I'm reading, which is Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. I did make it to page 31, which is 11%. It's not that far. I'm also reading on my Kindle again, which I love it. I guess my first impressions of the book is that the writing style is, I don't know if it's for me, it feels very juvenile to me, so not sure how I feel about that. It is a quick read. I was just so busy throughout the day, so that's why I haven't had time to read, but in about 15 minutes I'm gonna be doing reading sprints with Pam, so I know that I'm gonna get like a solid 100 minutes of reading because we do usually 4 sprints, 25 minutes each. So I know I'm gonna get a lot of reading done, so I'm not worried. My goal is to get to like maybe halfway point of this book, which I think is very doable. What? Okay, it is 2:52 in the morning and I just finished reading Funny You Should Ask. I'm not sure what I'm reading it yet. I'll do that in the morning. Hi everyone, good morning. Finished reading Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. This was quite fun. I liked the format. It kept me really wanting to read, but it kind of didn't live up to the concept that it tried to do. I think there was just not enough chemistry between the two characters. There's just not enough in there for me to really believe that they have been pining over each other for the last however many years. Like, while I was reading this book, I had this vague feeling of deja vu, like I have read the story before, or maybe I watched a movie based on the story, and I finally figured out after I finished reading it what it was. This book is essentially a fanfic of the 2011 GQ profile of Chris Evans. I mean, it's the iconic profile of Chris Evans, written by Edith Zimmerman, where she essentially did everything that the main character in this book did, where she interviewed Chris Evans. It kind of went off the rails. She was invited to a premiere and then to a party, and then she had to like duck out of the party in the middle of the night. I'm gonna do all my ratings towards the end, but I just want to say that reading the GQ profile is way better than reading the book. After reading Funny You Should Ask, I continued reading The Dare because I actually did start reading this last month, but I got to like what, 5%? Really haven't read a lot of it, so I did start it the day before. Finished reading The Dare by Elle Kennedy, and that one is for the hockey romance subgenre. I don't think I did an intro about it, but we are following Connor and Tracy. Now, Connor is, I guess he's one of, not really like a superstar in the Briar hockey team, but he's like one of the better players in there. Tracy is a sorority girl who is also an elementary school teacher. We've met Connor in the previous Briar U book, which was it The Chase? I'm getting all of the books mixed up in my head, but yeah, we've already met Connor in the previous book. He's kind of portrayed as this playboy kind of guy. He's kind of like Dean De Laurentiis from The Score, but make him from the West Coast and not rich, basically. That is Connor. It kind of has a little bit of this fake dating trope, but not really a lot. It's enjoyable. It's the last book in the Briar U series. I'm happy that I finished the series because honestly, the Briar U book feel like it just rehashed the same characters from off campus and just added a little bit of a different seasoning. So I kind of got bored of it, which is why it took me a while to finish Briar U, whereas with off campus I read one every single month. This whole series is something that I would recommend to beginners of romance with a little bit of spice. So that's The Dare by Elle Kennedy. For the next installment of our reading different genres, flavors of romance, I'm going to be reading a dark romance. Disclaimer, it's not really like a dark romance, like Haunting Adeline vibes, where it's like really dark, really gory. I think it's gonna be gory, but it's a dark romantic comedy book, so it's a little bit different, which I like. And that is none other than Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I have heard plenty of good things about this book. Everyone seems to really like it, so excited to read it. First physical book as well for this vlog, which is exciting. So the back says, the viral Friends to Lovers dark romantic comedy full of murder, chaos, and sizzling chemistry. So I have high hopes for this one. I have no idea. I just know that they're both serial killers. So there is that. Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I'm gonna start reading this today. But we're just gonna go with it. I just wanted to do an update on Butcher and Blackbird. So I ended up reading 79 pages while I was at the hair salon. I just got like a treatment, nothing really fancy. I just wanted to feel pampered. But yeah, so I made it to 79 pages, and so far I am really enjoying it. I like the writing style. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's funny, but it's very casual, very lighthearted for the topics that they're talking about. Like they're talking about maggots crawling out of like a dead body, eyeballs being gouged out of a face. So like the topics are very gruesome, but the way that they talk about it is so casual that it makes it kind of funny. The two main characters so far, I am liking their dynamic. I was kind of giggling at page 13 from Rowan's POV at the diner. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is in love. This guy is down bad. The only thing that I'm a little bit tentative about is the actual like serial killing that they're doing. So they are embarking on this game where I'm not sure if it's like a yearly game, but every now and then they race to be the first to kill like a serial killer in a specific area. So they did the first game, the first round of the game, and I felt kind of underwhelmed by the whole thing. I wanted to see a little bit more sleuthing, a little bit more picking up clues and figuring out who the serial killer was, and then having that aha moment that yes, that guy is the killer that we're after. I wanted to see a little bit more of that, but maybe that's just for the first round of the game that they're doing. Maybe as they get closer to each other and they have more of a relationship, maybe that will come in later on. I am hopeful, but so far I'm really enjoying it, and I'm gonna read more of this tonight, and then I'll just update you once I get to maybe the halfway point. So yeah, that is so far Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. Yes, chef. Oh my god, I cannot. He's a fucking chef. Ah. Not gonna lie, this book has me like kicking up my feet and giggling at 7 in the morning, and I'm like, I love them so much. I just got back from a nail appointment, just got very basic nails, and during that appointment I finished reading Butcher and Blackbird, and I love them. I really enjoyed my time reading this. I really love the characters, I enjoyed their development, I enjoyed the romance, I enjoyed the serial killing aspect of it. The only gripe that I have with this book is that I was really hoping that the serial killing parts would feel a lot more, not action packed, but I just wanted a little bit more of it. Like I felt like their games, their serial killing competition went by so fast. The one that they did with the chainsaw guy felt a little bit anticlimactic. Like I wanted a little bit more. I feel like that should have been like expanded a little bit more, specifically because that one was kind of, if you know, you know. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah. But overall, aside from that, I really enjoyed my time. Definitely gonna be getting Leather and Lark. I'm already looking forward to their story. So I am gonna pull out the next book that I'm gonna be reading, and I will get back to you. Hold please. After the roller coaster that Butcher and Blackbird was, we're gonna switch gears just a little bit and tackle this thick boy. This is The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. This is gonna be our fantasy romance pick. I actually have zero clue what this is about. I just wanted to read this because one, it's a Fairy Loot edition. As you can see, very pretty covers. This edges, very simple, not really my style. Ooh, I really like the naked cover. Let's use that. Really love the gold foiling on this one. I think it looks so nice, and I love how full it feels but still being minimalist. It's empty on the back. We have this simple spine, and yeah, I want to read this because, like I said, it is the Fairy Loot book. It's from the Kiss or Kill box, which was the adult book last May 2023. It's been a while since I got this book, and I really want to make sure that I go through all of my Fairy Loot books so I can decide whether or not I want to keep them or maybe sell them, pass them along to someone who might enjoy them a lot more. I just know that there's like a fantasy romance aspect to it because, right? I want to read this before I go on my trip because I don't want to bring this heavy hardback on the plane. So this is our fantasy romance pick for this video. Obviously, we have to pick a bookmark. I keep all of my bookmarks in this secret book kind of thing from Fairy Loot. This was my Butcher and Blackbird bookmark, which matched the cover so perfectly well. So I want something that's going to match this one. Let's see what I have in here. This could be kind of cute because there's like a sword in there. And my nails match the cover. Look at that. What a coincidence. It has been a while for me. For you, it's been like 2 seconds or something like that. But I finally finished reading The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. It didn't put me in a slump really, but what happened was I was reading it and then I had to go to Boracay, which meant taking a flight. And this is a big book and I was going there for a wedding, so I already had a lot of stuff with me, like bridesmaid dress, gifts, stuff like that. So I did not want to bring a big ass book. So I did continue this book after coming home from Boracay, and it took a while because this book is, it's not that long really. The text is very large, but I was reading this for the fantasy romance category of this vlog. But honestly, while this has romance and it is listed in like fantasy romance, it is a lot more fantasy than romance. It's definitely slow burn. It's not really your classic romantasy book. So it kind of, I didn't feel the urgency to read it because it didn't feel like it fit the whole theme of this vlog. But I was already reading it. I did not want to pick up a new fantasy romance book because, you know, fantasy romances tend to be on the longer side. So I just pushed through with this one and I finally finished it. My thoughts are that it's an okay book. The premise is nothing special. It's a plot that has been done so many times before. It reminded me a lot of the Grisha trilogy because of like the different orders of the affinities, which is basically what their powers are gonna be, compared to when I first read, for example, Six of Crows, since I'm already comparing it to the Grishaverse. When I first read Six of Crows, I have not read Shadow and Bone Tree. Like, I was completely new to the world, but it was so easy for me to just dive in and get to know the world as I go through the story, because the way that the different terms, the different kinds of places, the different kinds of powers are revealed feels a lot natural. But for this one, there was a lot of like info dumpy like expositions, but it still didn't feel like I knew a lot about the world. Like, I was still getting confused. Like halfway through the book, I still kept like referencing the guide in the beginning of the different affinities, the different people, and I just think that the way that the new information was integrated into the actual story was done a little bit poorly. Like, I didn't feel immersed enough to just absorb those information. I felt like I had to like think, okay, what was that person's role again? What was his affinity? Blah 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 blah. That's one of my gripe with this book. While it is kind of like fun in a way, like it scratches the itch if you want like a fantasy book with a bit of romance with that typical reluctant chosen one characters, it would be good for you. I did not know that this was a series, so definitely left off with a big cliffhanger-ish at the end. I'm probably gonna read the other books in the series just because I already started it anyway and I wanted to see what happens. But I did like the female main character. She felt a little bit more strong, more empowered than your typical female characters. So with that, I am finishing off with a fantasy romance. So slightly disappointing. It wasn't the type of fantasy romance story that I thought I was going to be reading for this vlog. But I still checked off a fairy loot book. That is The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. Fantasy romance done and dusted. As you can see, I'm not at home. I'm at Boracay, and it's kind of weird that I'm feeling so cautious, but I have been reading Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare for Regency Romance. And so far it's so good. Like, Tessa Dare's writing is so good, and I'm just having so much fun. Hi everyone, it has been days now since I last updated you probably. I just got back from a lovely little kind of like vacation in Boracay, as you might have seen from the last few clips. But yeah, I'm back and I'm gonna pick up where I left off on this video. But before I tell you about the books that I've read, I just want to open this fun little package. Came in the mail while I was away. I know exactly what this is, but I just want to unbox it with everyone. Let me see the first book. The first book that I got is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This is honestly one of my favorite books from last year. It's probably my favorite horror novel. I haven't read much, so that isn't really saying a lot, but I really, really love this one. So I got myself a copy, and look at this beautiful cover. That is just so good. So yeah, what books did I? Oh, it has a end paper artwork. Oh, I love that. Oh, this is a nice copy. I wasn't expecting such a nice edition. I thought it would be just a typical hardback. The second book is related to the first book, and that is What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. So this is the second book in the Sworn Soldier series, and oh my gosh, look at that. I love this cover, and this is the one that I'm really, really excited about. I've been hearing a lot of people rave about it, and I love a good fantasy. So The Will of the Many by James Isington. Oh, it's a thick boy. I've been seeing this around a lot, and I couldn't find it locally. I love that spine. I'm so excited. Now I need to find a place for this in my library. Be right back. The next category is paranormal romance. So the next book that I'm going to read is something that I'm super, super, super excited about. I have like put this on hold ever since I found out that it was going to be coming out. I am very excited. I just have the perfect book, which you probably know what it is. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So the funny thing is, this is just a photo. This is not the actual book, because I did put it on hold in my library. I did get it, but I got it like weeks ago. It has already expired weeks ago. But a trick that I almost always do with Kindle whenever I'm running out of time with my holds is that I download the holds on my Kindle, open it, make sure it's all complete, and then I turn off the Wi-Fi on my Kindle, and I don't open it until I finish that book. That is like a life hack, a bookish hack, if you don't know it already. That just means that the book still gets returned to the library, so it doesn't affect other people. Other people can still borrow that book, but your Kindle doesn't know that because it's not connected to the internet. So the book is just there, and you can still read it in all of its glory. I am gonna start reading Bride. All I know is that there's a werewolf. I think the female main character is a vampire, and then there's like an unlikely union between the two of them. That is all I know. Fingers crossed I also like this one.
We cut my hours down to 30 hours a week so that I have an extra day off. She wears all black. She goes into her closet and she's like,
I have finished reading Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I think I finished it like 2 days ago. And what do I think about this? I really like the first 50-60% of the book. Like, I think Ali Hazelwood did a really fine job at creating that familiar but slightly different world, because we are dealing with vampires and wolves, but then the way that they interact and the way that vampires are and the way that wolves are slightly pared down from what we know of them and the lore. And also just creating it in a urban setting, like how do vampires and werewolves interact within this modern age. Also the tension between our two main characters, which is, what is their name again? Misery and, what is the name of the guy? I just keep remembering Alpha, because that's what everyone calls him, because he's the Alpha. Roplan, something Roplan. How do I remember his last name but not his first name? Lo. The relationship between Misery and Lo had quite a lot of tension, especially in the beginning. I really liked their interactions. I liked how a little bit of romance has been introduced, not fully so, but I like the tension. I really enjoyed it, and like even after things have started to progress a bit, I think it was still really good. However, I think this book was too long and it just didn't work for me. It felt really good at the first 60%. Like the build-up was really good, but then they keep trying to draw it out for more, I guess, kind of like slow burn, but not too slow. So it's kind of like awkwardly in the middle. As for the plot itself, which I guess goes hand in hand with the relationship of the main characters, I thought that they tried to do a lot, like too much, that they had to like do this half-assed wrapping up, like half-assed ending to the plot just to tie all of the loose ends. But because they couldn't really expound on anything on just 400 and something pages when it comes to the plot, like the complicated plot that they've created, it just ended up being very half-baked. Towards the end, I'm like, that is the conclusion? Like, they were so afraid of this thing happening, and then it just ended up being such a trivial thing towards the end. It's so unsatisfying when such an anticlimactic ending was preceded by a very drawn out like plot building. Like, it's such a shame because I really like the relationship part. Like, I enjoyed their banter, I enjoyed their dynamics. They had a really good will they won't they moments, but eventually it all kind of fizzled out because it was just so damn long. With Bride done, paranormal's ticked off, I'm gonna be starting the last category of this video, the last romance subgenre, and that is none other than historical romance. I know that we had regency romance with Romancing the Duke, but that deals more with the concept of having dukes and courts and kings and that whole monarchy situation thing. For historical romance, it's really just a romance set, I guess, in an historical time frame that people know about. So usually it's hinging on factual historical events, and that is how I guess I differentiated it from regency romance. So the book that I'm going to be reading is The Stationery Shop by Marian Kamali. This book is set in Tehran, which I believe is the capital city of Iran, and we are following two people Actually, I don't know if we're following two people, but we are following Roya, who is this teenager. She's really interested in reading and literature. Her family expects a lot from her, which is kind of, I guess, progressive, because at that time, this was set in 1953 Tehran. At that time, women were not really encouraged to study. They were expected to be at home, blah, 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 all that shit. One day, she meets this very, I guess, charismatic guy, and eventually they did hit it off. They go into this very passionate and like, I guess, all-consuming relationship. But one day, on the eve of their marriage, when they were about to meet, violence suddenly erupts in their town square as a result of a coup between these two, like, parties that are vying for elections and stuff. It has a lot of this cultural and political backdrop, and I believe that they get separated on that day and they have never met again until, I think, 50, 60 years later, when they're much older. And the book actually starts with them speaking for the first time since they got separated during that coup 50, 60 years ago. And I guess there's just a lot of questions like, what happened to you? Where did you go? Why did you find me? Why couldn't I find you? And I thought that was just a very interesting start and premise to the book. So I am currently at page 20 and I'm just gonna read right now with my coffee. Update on this new angle. Sitting by my books, just reading for the past like couple of hours, 3 hours maybe, and I made it to page 177.
그 사람이 정말 널 사랑한다고 그랬어?
믿어. Okay, I am almost done with the stationery shop, and this has nothing to do with the contents of the book whatsoever, but I absolutely hate the font that they use for this italics. My full-time job is a designer, so these things really bother me, and this italics that they use for like letters is a very unreadable font. Like it's honestly so hard to read, and this is gonna go on for like a couple of pages, and I just find that it doesn't have like accessibility in mind. But yeah, probably no one cares but me. Okay, I have made it to page 277 of the stationery shop, and I have never had any complaints about the writing style, about the storytelling, how things are progressing, because I think it's written quite well. But in this 270 something page, we are gonna be reading a letter. I'm not gonna say who wrote the letter just to keep it spoiler free, but we're gonna be reading this long ass letter that's trying to tell someone like what actually happened. But in this letter, there's like dialogue. Like the person who wrote this letter is obviously telling the story to the receiver of the letter, and I guess he wants to tell the full story because he's writing all of the dialogue, like the quotation marks. For example, in this letter, there's this Mr. This said, she said, he said. I mean, it's a letter. Like, it's written as if it's like a narration of the whole thing. And I just find that so, like, it took me out of my immersion of reading. I felt like it could have been written in such a way that feels a lot more realistic, like what a letter would actually sound like or read like. I just found it so weird. It's pretty much just like it reads like a flashback, which is essentially what it is, because you know this person is trying to tell the story that happened like decades ago, so it is essentially a flashback, but technically it's supposed to be a letter. So I just wish that the author wrote it as if it's an actual letter and not like use it just as like a mechanism to like talk about this flashback. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but cover the text to avoid spoilers, but what letter has this divider in the middle of it? Hi everyone, finally we have arrived at the end of this quite long video. I have been filming this video since February, so it's been a while for me, but I just wanted a little recap of all of the 7 books that we read for this video, and then maybe rank them based on just my experience of reading them right now. Obviously, there's so many books for the different subgenres of romance that I picked out. But the rankings are just based on the books that I've read right now. And then maybe I'll let you know at the end if there's like a specific subgenre of romance that I want to read a lot more about. So, without further ado, let's do all of my rankings. So, coming in at the very last place, the 7th place, is my pick for sports romance, which is The Dare by L. Kennedy. So, I rated The Dare 2.5 stars. It wasn't horrible per se, but I felt like because this is the 9th book in this entire, I guess, universe of hockey sports romance books, it felt kind of tired, kind of repetitive. It felt like a clone of all of the other books that came before it, just, changing little things here and there to make it slightly different. And I just did not find myself invested in the characters as much as I was invested in the characters in the off-campus first 4 books in the series. Thinking about it now, I probably should have picked a different sports romance book, like a different sport even, but at the time this was just the first thing that I was gravitating towards, especially because I had already started it at that point and I just want to finish books that I started. So yeah, maybe that was my fault, but in any case, I would still highly recommend this book to people who just want a very quick and snappy romance book. If you just want smut with a little bit of plot, then these books are very, very good to pick because they deliver in those aspects. Just don't think too deeply about it, and maybe just don't read all of them back to back to back so you don't get tired of the whole hockey sports romance concept. That is The Dare by L. Kennedy. Coming in at number 6, which is actually tied for the 6th and 5th place, is Funny You Should Ask and Curse of Saints, both of which I gave 2.75 stars. I'm going to talk about Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis first, because if you were to ask me to rank those two, I probably would pick this to be lower ranked. So The Curse of Saints is the pick for fantasy romance. Now, again, I did not do a good job at picking this book because while this was listed in Storygraph as having fantasy and romance, knowing now what I know about this book, this would not be my pick because it didn't have all of the characteristics that usual fantasy romance books have. This is really more of like fantasy with a little bit of slow burn romance between the characters. This book kind of put me in a little bit of a slump. It was quite hard for me to finish this book because the fantasy concept of it is something that I've read before in so many other books. It reminded me a lot of the Shadow and Bone trilogy just because of the similar magic system, similar sort of dynamic with the warring countries and having a quote-unquote chosen one character. So it was kind of very similar to that. So it did not feel new to me. The world building itself didn't feel compelling enough for me to really sink my teeth into it. Now, for the romance aspect, it definitely delivered on like the tension, and it's definitely on the slow burn side. But slow burn, you have to do a lot of work to really create the tension and keep that tension taut throughout the book so that when you get to the resolution, it's satisfying. And I feel like this one really lacked in the romance aspect, which I'm not blaming it because it wasn't written with the whole fantasy romance aspect in mind, which is totally not the book's fault. But in general, my enjoyment, like my rating of it, which is 2.75 stars, was not really hinging on the fact that it's not fantasy romance. It's really just that it's not immersive enough for me. And the concept itself was just, typical for the genre. So yeah, that is The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramis. Now, moving on to the other book that's tied for this spot, which is Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. I think this was the first book that I read for this video, and also I gave this 2.75 stars. This book is my pick for contemporary romance, and let's see. The premise of the book itself is very interesting, but the actual execution of that concept kind of fell flat to me. I was not completely believing in the so-called spark tension between the two characters. It was a lot of like telling and not showing. There were moments in there where I felt like, oh yeah, they have some kind of tension going on, but it wasn't that unforgettable tension that people would still be talking about 10 years later. And also, everyone just keeps saying that, oh my gosh, the profile that the interviewer wrote of Gabe, which is a celebrity, was like so well written that it launched the career of the interviewer. But then we get glimpses, actually we get the full writing of that profile, and it doesn't read good. Like, it wasn't like good writing. It's kind of like when the author keeps saying that, oh my gosh, it's the pinnacle of celebrity profiles, it's so juicy, it's so well written, blah 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 blah, and then you read the thing and it's like very basic. And I think in general it was just a so-so book. I really wish it delivered on the premise. But if you're looking to read something like this, then just read that GQ profile of Chris Evans. It was way better written than this one. And in fourth place, which is my pick for Regency romance, I read Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. I gave this one 3.25 stars. This was my first Tessa Dare novel. Yes, it's my first Tessa Dare novel. And honestly, it was a lot better than I was expecting. It was so incredibly funny in a ridiculous kind of way. And you definitely have to suspend your disbelief on a lot of things. And also there are like themes here that I'm not 100% sure if I agree with the way that these sensitive themes have been tackled. I still found myself enjoying the book, laughing and giggling at their banter and their interactions. It's a very easy book to read. I can imagine this as like a rom-com movie that you watch on Netflix just to pass the time, and it will, give you laughter, it will give you a little bit of romance, and you would be like happy because you're not expecting a lot from it. I would recommend this to anyone who just wants to have like a quick read and are very new to the Regency concept. It can be quite intimidating because if you're not familiar with the whole like courts and dukes and like all of the positions and I guess the manners, the etiquette, the customs of that time period, you might feel quite intimidated to start a Regency themed book. This one is a good first book to read because it's very simple. Everything is explained very well. It's just a popcorn rom-com is what I would call it. Yeah, that is Romancing the Duke by Tessa Dare. Coming in at third place, our bronze medalist is my pick for paranormal romance, which is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now, this book had a lot of potential, but it just kind of fizzled out. It was too short to do everything that I wanted to do, but also too long that the romantic tension did not last all throughout the book, and I was left kind of like bored of their relationship after like the 60-70% mark. And also that private plane scene, that's my favorite scene from the whole book. Still recommend it. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now, coming in at second place, our silver medalist is Butcher and Blackbird by Breen Weaver. This was my pick for dark romance. Now, this is very, very different from your typical dark romance. It's dark romantic comedy, so there is a comedy aspect to it. And honestly, it delivered. It gave me everything that I wanted in this book. Everything that I expected out of this book based on the synopsis, what I've heard about it, it delivered. I love our characters. I love everyone, like the side characters, the main characters. I was enamored by all of them. I found them all quite compelling in the roles that they played in the book, and I gave this 4 stars. My only gripe with this is the part where you would expect dark romance wasn't as, I guess, expanded on as I wanted it to be. It kind of felt like rom-com with a touch of darkness. And I wanted a little bit more. Maybe that was just me having misplaced expectations on this book. But yeah, I wanted a little bit more of the serial killing aspect. Not that it has to be gory or explicit, but I just wanted them to have a little bit more time doing all of the serial killing things. But yeah, other than that, I really enjoyed it. I'm so excited to read the second book in the series, which is Leather and Lark. I definitely recommend this if you are very new to the dark romance genre and you just want something lighter than the usual dark romance books that are floating around in the internet. You will definitely be laughing a lot and giggling a lot in this book. I had a massive crush on Rowan Kane while I was reading this book. And yeah, that is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. And now, coming in at the number one spot, our gold medalist is my pick for historical romance, which is The Stationery Shop by Marianne Kamali. The Stationery Shop, I gave this 4.25 stars. The thing that I really liked about Kamali's writing in this book is that she so expertly introduced the culture in this book through storytelling. Look, she wasn't doing a lot of like exposition of, oh, this is what it was like in Tehran in 1953. This is what it was like to be a woman at that time. Obviously, you will learn all of that through the interaction, through the experiences of the characters, rather than her as sort of like a narrator telling us what is what at that time. Like, she's so good at weaving in and out of present day and 1953, and I found that I generally like books that are told in multiple timelines, but it has to be done well, because otherwise then it would be so jarring jumping in and out of the different time periods. But this one did it so well. I love how the focus is really not this passionate love, but more of like the gentle small interactions, the small things that make one person love another person. I really loved how that was the focus of this book. And also, obviously, it's very, very sad. It wasn't quite as gut-wrenching as I thought it would be. I'm not sure what that says about me. The thing that prevented me from giving this 5 stars is honestly the last couple of chapters of the book. You saw it in this video. There was this part where there was a letter, and I felt like it could have been such a good device to close things off, but it felt more like Kamali was like rushing to tie up loose ends and just put everything in that letter to finish things off. And that just didn't feel like it was on par with the rest of the book. Like, everything else was so good, so immaculate, but that part just really threw me off, and I really hated that part. But it is what it is. So even still, I highly recommend this one, and it's really educational, especially if you're not familiar with the culture. I certainly did not know a lot about the culture, but this book really did a great job at immersing you in that culture and really educating you in a way where you don't feel like you're being taught. Like, it doesn't feel like a classroom teacher telling you, okay, this is what's happening at that time, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of historical fiction tend to do that because they are trying to explain the history to you, or they're trying to explain the event to you, but this one did it in a very natural and organic way, which I really appreciated. That is The Stationery Shop by Marianne Kamali. And that closes off this very long vlog. I hope that you enjoyed going with me through this journey of reading very different romance books. If you have any suggestions for what genre I should do next, or if you have book suggestions for the genres that I read, please do let me know in the comments. I would love to read more. In terms of which genre I enjoyed a lot, I really enjoyed dark rom-com. I have never read any book like that before. So if you have any suggestions for dark rom-com, specifically, there's a lot of dark romance, but dark rom-com, I don't think I see a lot of that. So if you have more suggestions for that genre, please let me know in the comments below. And with that, I bid you goodbye. I'm gonna close off this video now, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!